Another CEO Wisdom podcast. Today with us, we have Michèle Hecken. She is founder and CEO at Michelle Hagen Executive Advisory and Alpha Global Experts. We're going to talk about a very interesting career that she had and still has, 24 years at Alpha Translation Canada. We're going to talk about offboarding. We're going to talk about CEO-ship and everything in between. Michelle, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your companies?
Hi, Charles. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I'm just very happy to be here. Always excited to talk about entrepreneurship and how we can live our best lives while growing and scaling our companies. It's a passion of mine. So, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years now. I've had several companies. I've had one significant exit from one of the companies that I founded and ran for 25 years, which you mentioned was Alpha Translations Canada. It's been sold to a publicly traded company called RWS, which is now one of the largest localization companies in the world. So I'm proud of that. So that's really cool. And then, as many entrepreneurs do, when you have a sale, for me, not much changed because I'd already built my company to be what I call the absent CEO. But I pivoted, I reinvented myself. I've written 2 books. One is out, the other one is coming out, hopefully this summer. And I have built my executive advisory with the purpose and passion to help other entrepreneurs build a company that gives them the freedom that they want and the growth and scalability that they desire in their company.
Let's talk about that first exit. Indeed, it was an interesting one. You spent 25 years of your life working at that company. So tell us about the insights you've learned during that 25 years and how did that because it's been 5 years, it's still recent.
Crazy,
how did that
right?
exit felt? Yeah.
Yeah, time flies. It's hard to believe that it's, 4 years and a bit already. Okay, so when I started my company, what I do is my superpower is looking at the world differently and shifting paradigms of how we think things can or should be done. And when I started my company, I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. I was in my mid-20s. I had moved from Germany to Canada and started my translation business with a fax machine with thermal paper fax that I had to cut with a scissors, so pre-internet. And I started a global company at a time where only large companies were doing business globally, right? The knowledge and the advice that I got back then was, that's never going to work. You can't build a company in Canada and serve clients in Europe. You're way too small. You're like, how are you going to do that? It's impossible. Grow your business in your own backyard first, and then maybe if it doesn't turn out to be a little mom cute side job, which a lot of people told me as well. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs have heard those discouraging things when they started off. And I did it anyways. And that was exactly what Seth Godin calls my purple cow, because there was an 8-hour time difference. I had clients in Germany. When they left the office for the day, they would fax me their translation and it would be morning for me. So I would then translate, fax it back, and they would have it when they came to work the next day, which was fantastic. So that was my purple cow. I was global from day one. It took me years to even find clients in my backyard because this was at a time where most translators were still typewriting and mailing their translations. So I had a huge time advantage. So that was how it all started. How did I grow it? How did I design it in a way that I'm now sharing with other entrepreneurs? Well, basically, it went so well that I was working 20-hour days for months. And one day I walk into my office and I see there's at least 40 feet of paper rolled up on my floor. And my heart sinks. I'm like, okay, this is great. Business in my little translation company is literally rolling in on the fax machine. but I know it's another 20-hour day. I'm tired. I know I'm not going to spend time with my kids. I know there's not going to be time for bedtime stories, probably takeout, and I'll probably finish at 2 a.m. And so, of course, that's what happened. But I didn't have a choice, as you know, many of us entrepreneurs, when we start off, we are the company, we know everything, we're the only one who can do things. Or so I thought. So that night, I fax everything back to the client. I check my answering machine that had a tape in it. And it was my doctor, my hairdresser, and my friend. And my doctor and my hairdresser basically said, I need to find a new practice. I need to find a new salon. My friend is worried about me. And I realized at that moment that I was being fired from my own life. And that's not why I started the company. And I was facing a real dilemma because I had a vision for the company. I wanted to grow it, but I also want to be a mom. I want to do both. So that's when I decided I can do both. And I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. And I'm not going to sacrifice my kids' lives for the business or the business for myself. So I started hiring translators. I started creating what I now call the offboarding process, the art of offboarding. So within a year of doing that, it's not an overnight thing. It takes some planning. It takes some time. But within a year, I went from working 20-hour days to spending every day with my kids. I went from being frustrated and anxious and stuck to living the life that was fun and free. And guess what? The company grew faster because of it. I had a finite amount of words that I could translate in a day. So I trained other translators, and then it evolved and I brought in revenue. So I created this process of offboarding. Of course, I didn't call it that then. And it allowed me for probably 15 years in the company to work 4 to 10 hours, sometimes less, a week in my company. And I created more value, it scaled, and I had a higher multiple on the exit because of the way I had set it up, because I was out.
Quite interesting. I want to talk about entrepreneurs organization because you seem quite a lot into this as well. What kind of value has masterminds, quote unquote, have brought on to you, and would you recommend them for most CEOs and founders?
Absolutely, Charles. Absolutely, I would. I believe that nothing great can be created in a silo. And I think the exchange with other like-minded people is critical. Now, EO in particular is, to me, very valuable, not just because I'm surrounded with a network of peers, but also there's so much learning. There's so much that I've learned in my now 17 years in EO. And a lot of that I brought into my company and implemented that. And just the exchange with other CEOs, the idea exchange. Also, I can be anywhere in the world and shoot a message out to my network and say, hey, who's in Paris? Does anybody want to meet up for coffee? And within a couple of minutes, we'll have a full table of people. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I would guess so. For masterminds, sometimes they can be quite challenging how to organize them, who to put together in the same room, how to make people accountable, and so forth. Do you have any tips of how to run these mastermind groups and make them successful?
Absolutely. Now, I have one mastermind group that I kind of just a small exclusive handful of people that I work with. And it actually, when I thought about putting a mastermind together, that's exactly what held me back, because I'm like, I don't have time to be herding cats. How do you get people to commit and show up and see the value? So that's why I kept it very small. I feel like the mastermind groups, if they're too big, they fall apart. The challenge is when they're small, you really need a committed group of people, because if half of them that don't show up, then you have a really, really, really small group, right? And so I think there's a bit of a happy medium. I also believe that you got to show value and be really clear on what the outcome of the mastermind is going to be, when it starts, when it ends, so that it doesn't just go on and on. I've been in a few masterminds, and some of them work and some of them don't. And I think it's the mix of people, one. I think secondly, if there's not a clear objective and a clear agenda, and or you need to have a clear objective, a clear intention, a clear agenda. And thirdly, I think it's really important to create some kind of personal connection within the group, and that kind of acts a bit more like the glue.
Right. And did this mastermind or these mastermind groups help you in your transitions from being acquired? Because that happened in 2019. Did you seek out for advice? Because usually it's a pretty stressful moment. You're about to get rid of your baby kind of, and changes are about to happen in your life. So did the mastermind group help for that?
Well, EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, was the one I was very involved with then and still am. Yes, of course, because it was nice to be able to reach out to other entrepreneurs and just say, okay, I'm thinking of exiting my business. Can I get some experience shares? What to watch out for, what to avoid? And so I learned a lot, and I got a lot of feedback as to, earnouts and all the different scenarios. I got experience shares from what acquiring companies might do. That's good, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that was helpful to me. Having said that, I was very, very lucky. The company that bought me was fantastic, or bought my company, was fantastic to deal with. The whole process was wrapped up in about 4 months. My team that I had, kudos to my team. They worked so hard, and it is a lot of work when you go through due diligence. So yes, I think the most important piece of advice I got was, if you're thinking about an exit, make sure you get your house in order first. And what I mean by that is, make sure you have easily accessible all of your contracts with clients, any agreements, all of your financials. Do that beforehand, because in the acquisition phase, they want it like this, like this, like this, and it puts a ton of stress on the team.
I would guess so. And how was the exit from a financial perspective? Was it life-changing? And how did that change your mindset and your lifestyle?
Okay. I'm going to be very vulnerable here for a minute. It didn't change my lifestyle very much, because in the past 15 years, like, I had my team, I had my COO, I really didn't work in the company. So I had all of the freedom. So it didn't feel like a big transition. Like, I'm in the office every day and I'm working to boom, nothing. I had already kind of gotten used to that lifestyle. What was really significant for me, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to, is that you go from having a consistent cash flow, and when you're working on your business in a way that I did, I really didn't have to, like, the money was coming in, it was flowing, my team was amazing, and then going from that to no income, but a large amount of money, is really discombobulating. Like, I'll be really vulnerable here. It didn't feel real for a long time. And I've always been in abundance mindset, always. And you'd think that that would amplify the abundance mindset, but it didn't. I actually went into scarcity mode. And I know many other entrepreneurs who do that when the cash flow all of a sudden cuts off. More money than you ever would have imagined you could have. But it's anxiety inducing, right? Because it's like your whole life's work, and then you're afraid to make mistakes. How do I invest it? What do I do? And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who probably have more experience with that while they're growing their company. I didn't have a ton of experience with that, so that was hard.
Yeah, I must guess. So the cash flow component, but also just the mindset of I've worked my whole life and I conditioned my brain to constantly be working and being on, and it's a habit. It's a habit to spend time in things, and yet it's just a new environment, a new context, and the brain needs to adapt to that. But yeah, I can certainly relate, and I think I'll somewhat have similar reactions if or when I get into these exits. You kind of branched out with Alpha Global Experts investing in companies. How has that pan out since you started doing that? At what kind of brands you invest, and what would you recommend for people that want to angel invest?
Great question. Yes, I started that, and it was a it was a very interesting learning curve. It's very cool to hear, my goodness, probably hundreds of pitches from different companies and learning how to evaluate the owners. It was very cool. I probably spent about a good 6 months to a year, not quite a year, but just learning, listening to pitches, getting a feel for the companies, and, just immersing myself to see, do I really want to do this coming in as a new angel investor? And so I did. I invested in a few companies, very small investments, because obviously I'm still new to this, so I wanted to learn. So it's an interesting experience. I didn't pursue it as strongly, because then I pivoted to build my own practice, write my book. I started painting. So I really gave myself permission when I sold the company to say, okay, what do I want to try? What do I want to do that I, didn't really do before? And so I started painting, and I love it. I now have a whole series. I have a gallery actually interested. So I now feel like I can call myself an artist, even though it's not on display yet. So I'm having a really, really lovely time with that. It brings me a lot of joy. And my art is similar to my business. I want to inspire people to think of things a little bit differently, to shift their paradigm just a little bit in a positive way, so that they can maybe see some things or realize some things or feel some things that make their lives better.
If you would have to paint your state after the exit, what would the picture or the painting look like?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Great question. What would the painting look like after the exit? Wow, that's really tough. I think it would, and I paint a lot of people and portraits, and I don't do a
Would
lot
it
of
be a
landscape.
Van Gogh?
Yeah, no, actually, it would be more like really happy, like just like jumping up. Maybe there would be like how you have the phoenix from the ashes, and I don't
Right.
like that, because I feel like it's a very negative, right? There's ashes, something burned to the ground, which of course was not the case. I built a very successful company, and I loved working on it, and I loved working with the people in it. But maybe it would be more like kind of a rebirth almost, where, and I know this is going to sound cliche, and I would never really paint it that way, but almost like maybe there's this beautiful lily, and this beautiful woman comes up out of it, and there's light, and it's green and gold, and she's just looking forward into her new future and has all opportunities open to her. Maybe it'd be something like that.
Yeah, reinvention kind of, because life is seasons. Sometimes there are seasons that last for quite a long time, 25
Yes.
years in that case, but we constantly evolve as humans. One of the clear lessons that I got in my career was that I constantly made very bold prediction, and I wasn't flexible in these. I thought I would be that way for years and years, but reality is that we all change, everything changes around us, including our brain, including our cells at this moment. So you need to view life in patterns and shapes and seasons. Nothing is temporary. Nothing is actually frozen in time. Everything changes. So, and I think entrepreneurs, they kind of need to flow with these seasons, because some of them are too rigid sometimes, and that's when burnout happen. Have you seen that in some of your coaching clients, the lack of flexibility and them kind of being too solid or rigid in their mindsets?
I have. I think one of the biggest challenge. So I work with clients that have typically businesses $5 million and up. So there's some smaller ones, there's some $500 million ones. So it's very different per client. They all have different challenges in the season or the phase that they are in their company. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and the person was saying, when you think about nature, nothing is straight. There are no straight lines in nature. So when we look at nature, there's a flow, there's a river. Anytime you see a straight line, it's man-made. So that rigidity that you're talking about sometimes holds us back from actually achieving what we want, because we're trying to force it. And when we can be more flexible and go with the flow, things come more easily. And as you said, things are always moving. A lot of the clients that come to me because they built a business. They've been told, don't work in your business, work on your business. Nobody really explains how to do that beyond saying you need to delegate. And then what happens is they get more stuck. Why? Because when you delegate, you still have ownership of everything, right? What happens when we delegate? Typically, the stuff we don't have time to do because we procrastinated on it, or we don't like doing it, or it's hard because we're not good at it, right? And then we wait till the last minute, and then we feel guilty because we think we should be doing this, and then we give it to somebody else. Great. Ooh, wow, amazing. Feels awesome. So we do it again and again. And then we wake up in the middle of the night trying to remember who we gave all these projects to, and then we start micromanaging. And so delegation in that sense, where we give tasks away that we still own, burns us out more, stresses us out more, and gives us less freedom. So my clients come to me because I can help them work on their business through offboarding, and through that, get more freedom in their lives. And when we talk about rigidity and movement, that's the other thing. People are like saying, delegate, 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 and I need work-life balance, I need work-life balance. And both of those things, in my opinion, do not work for entrepreneurs. Because what happens first of all, for entrepreneurs, work is life and life is work. There's no difference between work and play. It's all life, right? And if we look at it that way and we say, okay, only this part counts, the fun part, then we're missing out on half of our lives, on joy in half of our lives. And so then we try so hard to balance everything out. And then what happens? As soon as we move, the balance is gone. So that flow analogy, I find for entrepreneurs, is more valuable. So I think I've answered your question. Clients come, they want to solve their dilemma that they start a company to have more freedom, and then they end up having less freedom than they ever imagined. And that's not why we start companies. We don't start companies to be slaves to them. And so I show entrepreneurs how they can build a company that serves them, and they serve the company in a different way.
Right. And very few barriers between personal and business. My business, I'm not sure. Well, I think it has become that way. I don't think it was like on purpose, but it has become my freedom. For example, be able to post what's on my mind on a daily basis on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter. I share it all like an open book. Making videos and influencing people. These podcasts, for example, being able to meet folks online and just talk about their stories and share insights. If that's not the definition of freedom, I don't know what is. As someone
Yeah.
that's always been fascinated with knowledge and meeting new folks and exchanging value and connecting with my fellow humans. I mean, it's on a Zoom, so it's not like the same as in reality, but it's pretty damn near, you know. And I do
Mhm.
think that, yeah, technology is coming for that. So very much agree on that point. It's like it's one thing, it's not two things. So yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
Last question for you, Michelle. I'm quite interested in the speaking parts of it. How do you get your speaking gigs? Because all the speakers I speak to normally they're not paid to do so. You know, it's just like more like free promotions, and then they get potential clients after their talks. So how do you go with that?
It kind of depends on where I'm speaking. When I speak within entrepreneurs organization, um, I very often do it for free over Zoom. Simply because I've been in the organization for 17 years. I love giving back. However, when I do workshops, when people hire me or hire me to speak on a bigger stage, yes, I get paid. So I love giving value. It's important to me to give back. And part of entrepreneurs organization, I mean, I know how many people I can help with giving them a little bit of the process or the whole process of how I was able to do it and get more value at the exit. So I love this. I mean, I would get up in the morning and talk about this to anybody. So that's actually really fine for me. Um, at the same time, I do see a lot of speakers who just generally are shy about saying how much they charge. And the way I look at it is you set your value, and that's your value. And I know the value I provide. I know what it's worth. I know how much time it saves. I know how much it helps people. So when you're thinking of speaking, it really is, I'm providing something of value. And, the thing is, often when you do things for free, even if you love them, people are not as engaged, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, there'll be a recording. I'll come back to it later. Whereas if there's a fee, people tend to be more engaged and you tend to get more of the right people where you can really make a difference as a speaker.
Right, financial accountability, one of my favorite concepts. And yeah, for your hourly fee, well, market will determine that. It's always hard to say like how much we will provide in terms of value. So, and if it's like prepaid upfront payment, then yeah, I do believe there's gonna be existing technology to kind of fix this problem, make sure that the rate is fair and fully transparent, eventually speaking. But yeah, for now, yeah, I do advise people to charge more, and that will
Yeah,
force them to actually deliver more. And yes, people do not take you
absolutely.
seriously if you don't
Right.
charge. So yeah,
Agreed.
good one.
And also having
Yeah,
having books also of course helps, right? And if you're a speaker and you're looking to get representation from a speakers bureau, your fees have to be at a certain level because otherwise they won't take you. So if you're building up your speaking career, keep that in mind as well.
right. Good advice there. So where can people find out more about you, Michelle?
Um, Thanks, Charles. Yes, absolutely. On my website, michellehecken.com, and it's Michelle with one L, not two. So MICHELEHECKEN, michellehecken.com. Michelle Hecken on LinkedIn. My profile is there as well. Reach out to me if you have any questions and you want to learn more about how to make space for your business to grow and scale while you can enjoy your beautiful life.